with them from there, and just fell in love with the way that you guys approach this. And I love the interfaith, um, bringing together people who, like Krishna said, want to be better humans. I love it.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. And we are better because of this, because of meetings like this and connections that we have with human beings who offer us different insights and different understandings about life that help broaden our vision and help us lead lives of goodness. As far as I can see, that looks like everybody. If I missed anybody, speak now or forever hold your peace, as they say. We got everybody? Okay, fantastic. Yeah, there we are. All right, good.
Ready?
All right, well, let's see. I'm grateful that we went a little longer, but I am going to keep within the time constraints. And anybody who has hands, if I don't see it, sometimes I look at the screen, just call out. Somebody, if there's a comment that I miss, I'll try and go back and forth. I can chew gum and walk, but not much else. And we'll finish around 11. You let me know, Sherry, when I've got the clock here, and if we need a few extra minutes, well, we need a few extra, but we're gonna limit the study today, because what is more important than anything we learn today, in my humble opinion, is that we have come together simply because we are human beings. And if more faith traditions and more people of faith would live like this and serve like this and celebrate like this with each other, we would have a much brighter and lighter world. So thank you all for participating in something that really has the potential to bring healing to this world, at least to our immediate world. And that's my hope and prayer for everything that I do. And I'm grateful you're all helping me along this way. So what I thought, I'm going to abridge a lot of things because of time. What I'm hoping to do today, at least on a basic level, nothing comprehensive, is to give those who are Jewish a deeper understanding and greater reverence for the Jewish faith approach, or the approach that Judaism brings to faith and to life and to soul and to the divine and to service, and also to help those who aren't Jewish see an element or an aspect of Judaism that you probably don't often have access to because you don't know where to start. So I'm going to try and synthesize a few themes and ideas and practices about a special time, a sacred time that we are in and we're also approaching. We're both in it, but we're also approaching it. And so the time period that we are in right now, we're approaching it, but we're also somewhat in it, and I'll explain that in a moment, is what we call, in English, some people at least, the High Holy Days. So this is an overview of some of the central holidays in our Jewish faith tradition. And I'm going to apologize up front for I am being very selective, even more now because of time, but I'm going to highlight certain aspects, and I'm intentionally leaving others that need to be discussed aside. And there are many layers and many matters and many dimensions that I simply can't discuss, but we will hopefully in the future study and in our other times together. But in addition to the High Holy Days, as they're called, a more traditional term for them is Yomim Norayim. And those are two Hebrew words, Yomim from Yom, which is day, Yom, which is day. It's related to the word Yom. We'll get into that in a moment. But Yomim Norayim, the days of awe. That's what we're approaching right now. And we're in a time period where we're actually preparing to encounter these holy days of awe. We don't just show up on Rosh Hashanah, which is one of them. We'll get to that in a moment. We don't just show up that day and begin experiencing this time period of reverence and awe. We take a number of days leading up to that. It's 30 days beforehand, and actually even longer than that if we wanted to really nuance it. But it's at the bare minimum, it's a month, but it's more than that, that we take to prepare ourselves for these Yamim Narayim, these days of awe, these days of holy reverence, these days of just, it's a deeply unique way of engaging with life that we often lose sight of because of life. We lose our reverence and we lose that depth of awe because life often, if it breaks us or if it doesn't break us, it simply numbs us or leads us in other paths, away from our core, away from essence. So these days, they're called Yamim Narayim because they're trying to bring back the awareness of awe and wonder and reverence. And this is central to our lives, whether we're on the faith spectrum at all or left or right, meaning conservative or more liberal theologically. It's a very critical time and it's essential to who we are. So this word Yamim, or the two words Yamim Narayim, the days of awe, if I say that, there's another word that sounds very similar. If you don't know Hebrew, you might think I'm saying Yamim instead of Yamim. They are spelled essentially the same. There's one vowel that's different. Instead of an O, it's an A. And in Israel, they pronounce it the same. So it literally sounds like it's the same word. So we have first the understanding of the days of awe is what we are encountering or leading into. But if we say that's yummy, if we say yamim narayim, this is a little rabbinic playfulness and creativity with the language and the verbiage. Yamim are the days of awe, but we could also say it's related to yamim narayim, which are the seas. Yamim are days and yamim are seas. So if we change it from days to the seas, like the oceans, it now becomes, this is a time period where there is like an oceanic reservoir or body of awe that we are about to enter into. It's the sea or the seas of awe that we are potentially engaging with and going to discover. And the idea of a sea in many traditions is there's a mythic dimension, a metaphoric dimension to the sea. And the sea in many faith communities and social, spiritual understandings has the idea of mystery and of depth. It inspires us to wonder and to explore and to be drawn into a deeper awareness. So if we use that as our reference, it's not now simply days of awe, it's these metaphoric seas of awe, oceans of awe, oceanic awe, which is calling us and hopefully drawing us into this time period, into a greater awareness of wonder and awe and soul searching and discovery. That's what this time is trying to inspire within us. And my prayer for this brief time that we have together in this study, and we'll do it again on October 9th, I guess it is, on a Wednesday, we'll do another Zoom. But my hope for today and over this next few weeks that we're together and you're studying and observing the holidays, if you do, and if you don't observe the holidays, my hope is the wisdom that we're discussing will inspire you. But my hope is that during these days, that we are drawn to explore and seek out ways of living that will give us a greater grounding in wonder, in awe, in reverence, because it's central to life. And we can't do it alone. We need each other in this process to help us rediscover the wonder and the awe and the soul and the wisdom that we lose sight of. So when I speak of the days of awe, the Yamim Narayim, or these reservoirs of awe, this body of awe that is there awaiting for us to sail into, metaphorically, We're speaking specifically about 2 days in the Jewish calendar. One is Rosh Hashanah, and the other is Yom Kippur. Okay? Yom Kippur. That's technically what it is, but it also, and that's the Yom Kippur is our Jewish New Year. We'll describe more in a moment. And I'm sorry, Rosh Hashanah is our Jewish New Year, and Yom Kippur is our Day of Atonement. It's on the first of the month. That's important. Rosh Hashanah, which means the beginning of the year. It's the first of the new year. And Yom Kippur is on the 10th of the first month, or the 7th month, technically, but we'll discuss that in a moment. Jews have issues with counting, as I always say. It's the beginning of the year, but it's the 7th month. And that will take a lot longer to explain than anything I'm going to try to explain today. But Rosh Hashanah is the beginning of the year. It's the head of the year. And it's on the first of Tishrei. And Yom Kippur is on the 10th of Tishrei. In between the 1st and the 10th are also a holy period of time. It's called the Aseres Yemei Tshuva. It's called the 10 days of returning to who we are, of repenting, of rediscovering and searching what we've lost in life in terms of our awareness of who we are. So it also includes the 30 days before that month, or 29, 29 days before that month. So it's a long period, but technically, biblically, we would say it's specifically Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. And those are the high holy days. That's one model of time that Judaism has in this month of Tishrei. We also have another calendrical model or sacred model that you've all heard of, I'm certain. We call them Shalosh Regalim, the 3 pilgrimage festivals. So one is about pilgrimage, Passover, and what we call Shavuos, what Christians call Pentecost, and then the Feast of Tabernacles or the Feast of Booths, or what we call Sukkot. So those are the 3. That's the other calendrical model that we have that has its own theology. The Yom Kippur and Rosh Hashanah is one set. It's a calendrical component, but it has one set or one idea that overrides it. There's another model calendrically in our calendar system that is not theologically related to Yom Kippur and Rosh Hashanah. These are pilgrimage festivals where Jews in the ancient world would all go up to Israel, right? These sacred days, Passover, Shavuos, Pentecost, and Sukkot or Sukkot, and the Festival of Booths. And the difference between them is the festivals are about the journey. We journey to Jerusalem. Keep that word journey in mind. The Yomim Noraim, the days of awe, Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, are a different model. And if you put these two together, the journey, which are the pilgrimage festivals, and the Yomim Noraim, which are Yom Kippur and Rosh Hashanah, this time of awe, you get a complete theological vision, which is our journeys in the sacred should lead us into deeper awe, deeper wonder, deeper reverence, deeper mystery, deeper understanding of soul, of essence, of being. Those are the 2 calendrical models, but I'm explaining them more theologically and metaphorically. The journey, which is one model of our sacred tradition, the pilgrimage festivals. Where is the pilgrimage ultimately to? Technically Israel, but the other sacred model that we have in the calendar are the days of awe. And ultimately, all of our sacred journeys must lead us to a deeper place of awe. Otherwise, we're not going anywhere. I don't care where you travel from place to place in a land. The concern within Judaism and in many of our traditions, all of our traditions here, is where are you as a result of your journey? In your understanding of self, of soul, of other, and of the divine, and of our purpose for being here. That's the the overall calendrical, or a brief summary of the overall, as I understand it, calendrical model, poetically understood, that we have a journey that we're all taking. Each one of us has his or her own journey. But ultimately, in the end, it leads us to wonder and mystery. And that's what we end with now, is Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. And what's interesting, let's see, time here. Okay. I don't want to get us bogged down in too many details, although they're critical. What we call Rosh Hashanah, this, I'm assuming, I'm not even going to look, but I'm assuming most people have at least heard of Rosh Hashanah. And you have some sense of, yes, it's the new year. It has nothing to do with January 1st, New Year style celebration. It's very different, and we'll get to that in a moment. But I want you to understand that, as strange as this is going to sound, that name, Rosh Hashanah, that everybody uses to refer to this holiday, is nowhere in the Bible. It's found nowhere. That is a rabbinic term, and it means head of the year or the new year, but it is not the biblical name. The Bible has two names for it. Number one, it has two names, which I'm going to read from in a moment. And not only is it is the new year, but guess what? It's only one of 4 new years within the Jewish calendar. So the name we use isn't the biblical name. And this new year, which is in the 7th month, somehow you go figure that one out. This new year is only one of 4 new years. Okay, we have new years in 4 different months, with Nisan, with Elul, with Tishrei, and with Shvat. And they represent different aspects of renewal, different dimensions of renewal, because that's ultimately what we're all seeking in life. We're seeking to renew and to revive and to recover life. So just as an example, the new year, quote, new year, that is counted from Nisan, one of our months, that's when our calendar, it's the new year calendrically. We start our first month there. And that references the Exodus, because that's when our beginning, that's when it took place, during that time. So our beginning is in redemption, if you understand that parallel. The new month, the first month, is in the time period when the Exodus from Egypt took out. So metaphorically, we're saying that our beginning is rooted in redemption. Yes, we become bound by life and broken by life and enslaved by life, but there is ultimately redemption. That's our root, that's our core. And if anybody has any questions, comments, feel free to jump in as we go forward. If I'm not clear on something, but I'm not going to go through all 4 names again and all the themes that they represent of renewal, but just know that the biblical name, Rosh Hashanah, everybody uses it. I'm going to read you the terminology in the Bible, and to know this is only one of 4 new years. So in the Bible, in the book of Leviticus, chapter 23, it mentions that in chapter 23, right here, it says 23:23, the Lord spoke to Moses saying, speak to the children of Israel saying, in the 7th month, on the 1st of the month, there shall be a day of rest for you, and a remembrance, as they say it here in English, with the shofar. Okay? And shofar blasts, and it's a holy convocation. Okay? In the Hebrew, it's Zichron Trua. Zichron Trua. That's the first mention. It's a memorial. It's a memorial celebratory blast with this thing, the shofar that we blow. And some are longer, some are shorter. But that's the first biblical name. It doesn't tell us anything about it. It doesn't mention New Year. It doesn't mention all of the other things we're going to discuss. It says that. And it says not to do any laborious work, and you bring certain offerings. Then if we go into Numbers 29, verse 1, book of Numbers, chapter 29, verse 1. This is another section within the Bible which discusses the holidays. And it says something very similar. 28, 29. It says, in the 7th month, on the 1st day, there shall be a Mikra Kodesh, a holy convocation for you, not to do any laborious work. and it shall be for you a Yom Trua, not a Zichron Trua, a memorial blast, but it's a Yom Trua, a day of blast or blasting, a day of blowing, again, of the shofar. Lovely. That's it. And there are a couple of other references that are just for time's sake, I'm not going to go, but those are the main ones. And that's why this is one of the central rituals, which we will discuss in a moment, that we do on Yom Kippur. We blow the shofar. Okay? Now, what does that signify? We'll discuss in a moment. But some of the other names, I told you, biblically, the names are Yom Trua and Zichron Trua. That's not what we call it casually. We say it's Rosh Hashanah, the head of the year. I'll discuss that in a moment. We call it Yom Adin. It's a day of judgment. And the counterpart to that is the Day of Atonement on Yom Kippur in 10 more days, at 10 days after that, or 9 days after that, the 1st and the 10th. It's also called the Yom HaZikaron. It's another day of remembrance. There's this idea of remembrance and memory that's taking place, which will, again, is critical. It's also called by the rabbis Yom Haras Olam, which you could translate as a day of the birth of the world. It's the day of the birth of the world, or more nuanced. Not really, hara isn't birth, but it's more like the day of the conception of the world, of olam. But the rabbis also relate it to, you could translate it differently. It's the day where eternity, the word for olam is world, or it's also eternity. This is one of the biblical names. This is a day, a time, a period, a finite period of time where eternity is conceived of. That relates to us on such a deep level, because although we are finite in every dimension of our being, physically and in terms of the time we exist here on earth, most faith traditions have a notion or an aspect of our existence that continues beyond the physical. Beyond our atomic and chemical and biological structure, there is something else that endures somehow, in some way, in some form. And so what this day is also called, it's called the Yom Haras Olam, not just the day that the world was born, but more nuanced, that it's the day where the conception of eternity can be realized. We awaken to the notion of transcendence, of the eternal, of the infinite, through this practice that we go through for these, it's going to be over 40 days, 40 days roughly. And it even starts before that, and then there's a couple of celebrations even after that. But the idea here is this time period is leading us to be able to conceive and understand of something that is beyond, that is transcendent, and that will lead us into a broader way of being and living, because we're encountering something that transcends the normal day-to-day finite existence that we all place, hopefully, of deeper reverence. It's one of the calendrical models that we have. The other one being the pilgrimage, because our sacred journey should be leading us into awe. And we discussed the different names, right? Rosh Hashanah, which is the casual name that we use, which means the beginning of the year, even though it's in the 7th month. Again, maybe next year we'll try and figure out how the 7th month is the beginning of the year. And we discussed a couple of themes here about renewal. And one more thing before we conclude with one key dimension that in ritual about Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. The name Rosh Hashanah, which we use, means literally Rosh is head beginning, and Shana is year. Okay, great, it's our new year. According to the more mystically oriented rabbis, there's a wonderful commentary called the Sfas Emes. It's a book, and that's what we call the author by. We call him by his book. His name was Yitzhak Meir. He was almost about 200 years ago, a little over. And the name of his book is called one of his Sfas Emes, the Lips of Truth, Lip of Truth, Lips of Truth. And in this commentary, if only we all had lips of greater truth, or hearts that sought truth, so our lips would speak deeper truth. In his commentary on Rosh Hashanah, he describes the name. Just like I gave an interpretation of Yamim Narayim, the days of awe, could also be this oceanic Yamim, the oceans of awe, the seas of awe. He gives a play on the word Rosh Hashanah that is brilliant. And he says, Rosh Hashanah, this is so relevant for all of us because we all need renewal. We all have times where we need to begin again. We do it even monthly in the Jewish tradition. And then on Sabbath, that's our weekly renewal. So we have weekly renewal, we have monthly celebrations of renewal, we have 4 times a year, we have 4 new years. But this one is fascinating, the name Rosh Hashanah that the rabbis have given our new year. It's not just the head of the year or the beginning of the year. It's Rosh in the sense of the source, the head, like of a river that's flowing. This is the head of it, it's the source. And then he says the word Shana, and it's legitimate Hebrew. This isn't a fanciful read. This is grounded in Hebrew. It really is. It's playful, but it's grounded in Hebrew. So we have now Rosh, not Hashanah, the head of the year, but we have Rosh Hashinui, the source of Shinui, of transformation, the source of change. What we do now, what we do during this time period, is the beginning of the year, but it's much more than that. It is transforming the potential for our year because it's allowing us to connect to our root, our source, our beginning, so that there can be a genuine transformation in life. And if you go through this time period and you're unchanged, it might be the beginning of the year, like January 1st is. January 1st is the beginning of the year. But if it's not, if it's only Rosh Hashanah, the beginning of the year, and not Rosh Hashinui, a source of transformation, because of the previous couple of months that we've all been working and reflecting and searching within to discover that where we need to grow in our humanity, and that's what we're going to close with, what Rosh Hashanah actually entails in part. If you're only reaching the new year, Rosh Hashanah, but it's not becoming a source of transformation, you've missed the year, and you're not living up, we're not living up to our potential, our potentials. And that's where I want to leave us with. I'm going to comment on the shofar for a few moments, because this is central to Rosh Hashanah. It's not only used to declare the new year when we blow it in the synagogue. This is used throughout the Bible for probably 10 or 11 different occasions. It was used, the one reference that is used according to the rabbis, this was what the ram that was caught in the thicket when Abraham was offering Isaac up. And then the angel says, "What are you doing, homie?" Something like that. It's kind of the Hebrew, I don't know. But it's close to that. What? Stop. You can laugh at that. No, I should have waved. That was a joke. They caught the ram and then they cut off the horn. So this reminds us of that event. And the importance of that event is spoken of in the synagogues. And I'm not going to do it today because of time. But it's a central event in the Jewish system of belief, as it is in Christianity, although we take it in different directions, but it's a root ritual and story in both of our traditions. It also at Sinai, where Moses received the 10 Commandments, basically, In the Jewish tradition, he received a lot more. He received a lot more than 10 commandments. He was up there for 40 days. So he was a slow speaker, but he had a keener intellect. He could get more than just 10 commandments. So we understand he received a lot more up there. But they're going up to that, approaching that time, there were horns blowing, shofar, like thunder. So this reminds us of that holy revelation that was given. And this is a call. It's calling us to remember the holy. Remember the holy. And remembrance is a critical theme on this holiday, which again, I will conclude with. Remembrance is critical because we so often forget. Hey, David, I hope you got a hole in one. So it represents in Isaiah 27, it speaks of the ingathering of the exiles. And metaphorically, that says to me, whether if some people take it literally, and maybe I'm sure it will be, if there is an ingathering of all exiles, there's going to be loud blowing of horns and celebration. But it also could be, if we take it on a deeper level, that this represents the ingathering of exiles, according to the rabbis. Again, based on Isaiah 27, verse 13. We could also say that this call of the shofar, we don't blow it on the Sabbath, but it's a call. It's not just the ingathering of the exiles physically out there. It also is a call for us to gather our own exiled self from who we are. What is our place of exile, where we are separate from ourselves, where we're distant from another human being, where we are just simply alienated? This is a call, a wake-up call. That's how the rabbis use it. This is a wake-up call to come back, to return to who you are, in the great words of a beautiful song by Shlomo Carlebach, Rabbi Shlomo Carlebach. Return to who you are. If only we return to who we are, even a fragment of that beautiful gift of who we are. My goodness, would this world be different? So it relates also, like I say, when Joshua was going around Jericho, they were announcing, what was that commercial with it's not butter, blue bonnet or something? I think that's what Joshua, he had blue bonnet and he was going around the city of Jericho tooting his horn. All right, sorry, another joke. It's getting late, folks. You got to help me out here with the laugh.
I think it was Imperial margarine.
Think it was a what?
Imperial margarine.
Imperial, there you go. But I think Blue Bonnet is who's Blue Bonnet? All right, never mind. We'll get to that on Yom Kippur. So it has, but one more thing I will tell you, that this word shofar, it is literally, well, certainly in Aramaic, the Midrash brings down, our poetic texts, the Midrash brings down that in Aramaic, it sounds like the word for beauty. Same root, but we don't have to go to Aramaic. The Midrash is very creative. We can go to Genesis 49 when it talks about Naphtali, or I don't know how you say it in English, Naphtali, one of the 12 tribes in Genesis 49. And it's Naphtali ayala shlucha, like Naphtali was like a swift hind, okay, a swift hind, like a deer. And it says, it mentions Imre Shefer. Folks of speaking beautiful words. Shefer and shofar, same root. So as we say in Judaism, here's the pshat. Here's not just the simple meaning, which it means, but the pshat. And when you say it that way, pshat, it means here's a deeper insight. That this word, shofar, and this ritual that we blow, when we blow it, it's the call of the shofar. But since the root word is essentially related to the word for beauty, shofar, shefer, the vowels don't matter. What is it calling us into? It's calling us into a greater, hopefully, life of beauty, because it's calling us to return to who we are, to awaken from that slumber that we often live life through. We're sleeping. That's how the thinkers, Maimonides, awake, you sleepers. right? Get out of that slumber that you're in. He speaks of that in his book on repentance in chapter 3. Awake, you sleeper. Wake up, you folks. You're all asleep. That's what this does. It's like a trumpet sound. And the melodies that we do, I'll leave us with vocally. But just know that this call of the shofar, it is a wake-up call. It's a preparation for war. It's a call for the ingathering of the exiles. Or, again, it's a call for us to come back from our own exiled self. It's Sinai. It has many references. And what I want you to understand is the sounds of this shofar that we blow. Sounds, we have 4 sounds. And if you want to say technically a 5th, because one of them is the same sound, but it's just longer. We have these various sounds of the shofar that we blow, and they're all calling us. One is a long sound. That's called the tekiah. It's a whole sound. It's a whole sound. It's a sound of wholeness, because it's calling us to awaken back to that original awareness that we've lost, which is there is something whole within us, that our faith traditions or our life practices, if you don't have a, quote, faith practice, as a humanist, there is something more grand about our humanity than we often live by. This is a call to come back to our grand humanity, the grander dimension, or in theological or religious terms, it's a call to awaken and return to our true selves, which are soul, their souls, their essence, the essence of who we are, the spark of the divine that is within us. That's the first sound. That's the original sound. Remember, there is wholeness within us and within life. Now, here's where reality slaps us in the face. Life is not beautiful, even though this word shofar is related to the word shefer, or beautiful. It's a call to beauty. Well, guess what? Life often is tragically broken. Physically, emotionally, spiritually. It's tragic what often happens to us in life. Either natural disasters or simply human beings living a darkness that is unimaginable to most of us. There's cruelty in this world that is simply, there's no explanation. So the wholeness that we're speaking of, remember that call to awaken to our wholeness. The next sound that we blow is, there's another sound, shvarim, which means broken, but in the plural. Tekiah is singular. Broken, no, it's brokens. Because life so often breaks. And even if you have good people around you, sometimes just physically, psychically, we are hurting, we are lost, we are in pain. And it's not just broken or breaking, it's breakings, from shavar, to break. Shivarim is the plural. It is just a series of breakings and breakings and breakings. What happened to that original wholeness? Tekiah. Well, now it becomes, That's the sound that we blow. We blow it with this from our hearts. The heart is broken by life. That's the sound. You can hear it. I can't even call out anymore. I'm so hurt. I'm crushed. And the next one is even worse. It's a series of 9 blasts, because that brokenness that was unimaginable now turns into brokennesses and more brokennesses and even greater brokenness. That's part of life. What happened to that original wholeness, that beautiful whole note? and holy note of, it's an expanding, growing wholeness that we have within us that life just cuts off. If we've lived long enough, have experienced suffering and sorrow, or we've seen history, the tragedy, the monsters who have lived on this planet, who I don't even want to call human beings, and forget again our own ailments that we suffer with, physical ailments. It's breaking after breaking after breaking after breaking, shvarim, brokennesses that break even more, 9 times from 3 to 9, trua. And then the final one, we go back to, there's all kinds of different combinations that the rabbis do in the blowing of a service. In the traditional world, they make 100 blowings because there's all these different combinations. Those are the 4 notes. Begins and ends with wholeness in the midst of brokenness. But the way we ultimately end is not just with that one tekiah, right? Tekiah, whole, broken, more broken, trua. And then that call to wholeness again amidst the broken parts of our lives. We conclude the service, not just with that wholeness, but with an extended wholeness. It's a tekiah gadola. There is even greater wholeness, the great wholeness, the grand wholeness, the ever-expanding wholeness that can come back, even after all the brokenness that took place in life. There is still the potential for a return to wholeness on some level, on some plane. That's where this call leads us to. That's why it's not just shofar, which is a ram's horn, and it's calling us to awaken, but it's also shofar is shefer. It's reminding us that there is still a call to beauty, even amidst all the sadness and the sorrow and the suffering, that we have to learn, dedicate ourselves, and practice so that we can see it and experience it. It's not going to happen if you just show up on Rosh Hashanah and read all the prayers that you're not going to understand. It has to start well before then. Just like language, I can teach you the alphabet, but you can't then write poetry. We need a practice, a regular practice that will blossom into the wholeness and the redemption that we're all seeking, although it's filled with brokenness. And I leave you with this, and if there's any questions or comments, well, I'll take them for as long as we can. But there's a fascinating insight here about this shofar. Again, the same little horn that we've been talking about the whole time. So wonderful teaching by, remember I mentioned the Sfas Emes, the lips of truth, the one who said, Rosh Hashanah is not just the beginning of the year, it's Rosh Hashinui. It's because of everything that we've been doing in our sacred practice is now the source of transformation so I can live with more light and more beauty and more forgiveness and more charity and more love and more mercy. That's the call we have to awaken to. The Chedushei Arim, he's in this, it's a similar dynasty. It's the Ger dynasty, the Hasidim. The Hasidim, they're a group of pious communities that seek the inner. It focuses inward. They perform outwardly the rituals, but always with the intent that they have to inspire us inwardly. So he asks a very interesting question. On the prayer right before Rosh Hashanah begins, his language is 5 minutes. We say in our prayers that give us bracha, saying bracha, give us bracha. Please provide a blessing, provide a blessing. We're praying for blessing because we're trying to make amends. It's literally 5 minutes, roughly, metaphorically, but he says 5 minutes. It's 5 minutes before the end of the year. What are you worried about? You got 5 minutes left. You can't really do much. There's 5 minutes left in the year. What's with the prayers? What's with the potential reflections, seeking to transform your life? You know what he says? It's incredible. He says, even the last 5 minutes of a year can redeem the year. Folks, you may have blown it repeatedly the whole year, but that last moment before the time slips away and becomes a new time, you can take those last 5 minutes and renew yourself so that the year won't just be a new year chronologically, but it will be a year of renewal because you are seeking to renew life from within. So in the waning days, in these ending moments of the year, and you can use this in your own year model, whatever your calendrical system is, it's not hopeless. Yes, I've done X, Y, and Z, and I have failed tragically. But my goodness, even those last 5 minutes can redeem the entire year. The waning hours, the waning moments can cause us to wax again fully. Israel is compared to the moon because life is like the moon. There are periods of great fullness, of light, and then it's dark and empty. We come back. But we have to determine if we want to become full and whole again. And in another sense, I leave you with this. The great rabbi, a great mystical rabbi, the Shalah, his name is Shnei Luchos Abris. His name is the Two Tablets of the Covenant. That's literally what we call him. That's not his real name. It's Yeshaya Horowitz. But we call our rabbis after their book names. His name, hey, Two Tablets, come here. Hey, Lips of Truth, come here. Hey, One Who Desires Life, come here. The Chofetz Chaim. We got great names. He says, the last week of the year, and you take this for December, or you take it for Krishna. Where are you? What's the last month of the year in the sense in your tradition? What's it called?
It's called Panguni.
Okay, let's all say that 3 times. I want everybody to say Panguni 3 times fast. That's the secret to enlightenment. Panguni. What were you going to say? What does it mean?
It doesn't have any specific meaning. I have
It's
to go
beyond
back.
meaning. I love it.
Yeah. Sorry.
Okay. So the last 7 days of Panguni, Imi, what is the last month in the Islamic calendar called?
Dhul Hijjah.
Gonna have to repeat that one for me.
Dhul Hijjah.
Okay, that. I got the Voon. Hijjah. Close enough? Take
Yeah.
the last 7 days. What I'm about to say, apply it to those 7 days. I don't know if there are any other calendrical systems here. We've got Indian, we've got Islamic, we've got, in a moment, the Jewish, we've got December. If there's any other calendars out there, speak now. But whatever it is, take the last 7 days. This is what this wonderful rabbi, the Two Tablets of the Covenant. I just call him Two Tabs. That's my nickname for him. Tabby. I don't know. I'm in trouble. Don't worry. He says that every day of the year, like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, we had 358 days, and then there's 1 week left in the English calendar to make it simple. The last 7 days of the calendar, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Every month, that last Monday, you can, he calls it misakein. You can, that's the idea. You can misakein every single Monday of the year on that last Monday if you do a genuine repentance, searching out within where I failed, seeking to make amends. And then on Tuesday, reflect again on everywhere in your life, every aspect where you have fallen. And that will redeem all of the previous Tuesdays. Misakein, it'll fix. It's like a tikkun. It's a repairing. It will repair the past. we can't unring the bell. Yes, you can. On the level of spirit, we can redeem our past. You can't unring the physical bell, but we can unring the consequences of our actions through repentance. If we make amends, if we do genuine repentance. If you do it on Wednesday, that will redeem every previous Wednesday of the year. And it's remarkable, the potential that this offers us, the grief and the guilt that we live with because of who we have become in life. We can heal. We're not simply lost because of our failures. That's not ultimately who we are. We can, if we listen to the call, if we listen to its melody, if we listen to the original wholeness that is the first note, and then we experience the reality of life, which is broken, 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 broken through the next two callings of the shofar, the shvarim. Sorry, I just knocked the microphone, the shvarim and the trua. If we go through that and we continue and we search and we repent and we seek to uncover who we truly are and rebuild what we've broken in life, there will be that end note of tekiah, which is wholeness. And even beyond that, the final note of the evening, which is the tekiah gedolah, the grand wholeness. If we begin turning back to who we are, we can discover and recover the wholeness that we have lost. And we will, as a result of that, live with each other. We will bring more light and wholeness to this world, which needs it because it is so broken. If there are any comments, besides the fact that I'm so glad you are done, Joe, I'd love to hear them. If we have to, what time is it? 11:24. Sherry, were we going by Colorado time or California time that I was supposed to finish by 11?
Good question. No, it would be good to give people a chance
Thank
to
you.
ask questions if they have any.
I got it. Or you can just call me. But if there's any questions, we got a few minutes left. Why don't we'll say 6 minutes, unless it's like a major life crisis and you need us, we'll be here. I'll stay on with you. So any thoughts? I can't, let's see. How do they do that, Jerry? Yashim.
Yes, I was thinking of a few things, Rabbi, when you were talking. One, I want to thank you about your description of the notes of shofar. I hadn't heard that explained. And as you were doing that, I even Googled it and read up on it. And I just love that you did that. And the other comment, I want to go back to your earlier comments about the calendar. Well, why the seventh month is the first month? Well, it coincides with the Babylonian calendar and the zodiac.
Yes.
Actually, astrology still follows that. So April is the first month there.
Yes.
And then so seventh month would be the beginning of the Jewish New Year, Rosh Hashanah. The other comment I wanted to add was it reminds me, Rosh Hashanah, the head of the year. There's, the zodiac is a circle and time is cyclical. And it reminds me of the kinds of dances that are in the Middle East. They still exist in Turkey. The halai, the Kurds, Turks dance it all the time. Iranians dance it. So it's like a round. So people get together, hold hands, and basically, yeah, it's a circle dance. But there's always somebody that becomes a leader, and not everybody can be. And the leader comes in and is usually, twirling a silk scarf or any scarf. It could be any color, really, but basically the leader pulls the rest of the circle along. So I've always thought of Rosh Hashanah as the leader of the year in celebration, but also in like bringing up the energy of the people to go enter the new cycle, like the leader of a round dance, a circle dance. That's how I see it. I don't know what you think about it.
Thank you. Yes. And you're right. It is Tishrei. Most of the months in the Hebrew calendar are named when we were in exile in Babylon. But I would add to that the rabbis never limit it to the historic context alone. They always make something else more, because the word Tishrei, the rabbis play with and find something very rich next time. But thank you, Yajim. Anybody else, a few other folks, if there's any comments that we can share?
I don't know how to pick my hand up again. It'll take me too
Oh.
long, but this is
Okay,
Rita.
perfect. Yeah, just call out.
And just the July being the first month, funny enough, our fiscal year in the government is July 1st. It runs July to June 30th.
Which,
The government-
our first month is in July. It's either, it's Tishrei,
Seven.
which is September-ish, or March, April-ish, and then the other two are
Yeah.
different months. I don't know what's July, what's the new
No,
month
I
of
was just
July?
saying that the seventh month for us. For us
Oh,
in this
yes,
country.
yes. Okay, thank you. Thank you. I missed that. Thank you.
That's okay. And then you always leave me with a way to incorporate what we learn into my life so I can explain it down to my children and my grandchildren. So I really thank you for that. This is a little difficult for me, but I've always thought of Day of Atonement as something happy. And I remember trying to explain it to my children that, you know, when you repent and you let go and give it to God, that then you can be at one with God, right? I kind of took atonement and said you could be at
Mhm.
one with God, which I don't know. I still feel like what I'm hearing from you would be a happy moment for me. Is that weird?
We're going to just first, thank you as always for your comments and questions. We're going to discuss Yom Kippur on October 9th at 7 o'clock, Colorado, whatever, Mountain Standard Time. Rosh Hashanah is what we're focusing more on today just because of the proximity in the calendar. It's coming up. But Rosh Hashanah actually, and Yom Kippur, even though we call it a day of judgment and a day of atonement, the rabbis actually do speak of these as times of joy.
Okay.
And the joyful dimension has been, I don't want to say it's downplayed, but the focus has moved away to some extent from the joy of this day of judgment. But Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement, the rabbis relate it, Yom HaKippurim, it's like Kippurim. The Day of Atonement is like Purim, which is one of the most celebrated and celebratory evenings. So there is this dimension of joy, and there is always joy, even in the midst of the seemingly dark or severe or periods that don't normally jump out at you as joyful. All right. Anybody else? Just call out. Let's see. Who do we got?
I have a question, Joe.
Yes, Professor.
Can you say more about the term Yom Hadin? Because for Day of Judgment, because in Islam, Yom Ad-Din, the similar term, has
Yes.
connotations about the last days, about what happens in the end times, and I wonder if there are similar connections in Judaism.
That's interesting, and I'd love your comments, Amy, to see where we parallel or where we part ways. The Yom Adin, in one sense, has an ending aspect, because the end is ultimately determined by how we live now. But the focal point of the Yom Adin, the day, Yom and Hadin,
Oops.
He's coming down. He'll just use my computer.
Oh, okay. Did we lose a connection up there?
I don't know. His computer might have died. Something might have happened.
All right. I'll just take a moment then to just, I know we're wrapping up and people are having to leave. Thank you all so much for being here today.
You want to come in here?
As a reminder, oops,
Sure.
hold on.
okay. It's
Go
muted.
ahead.
Okay.
Okay.
Hey, where are you? Are you here, AC?
Yeah.
Okay, AC, I can blame AC. He forgot to tell me to charge my computer. How's that, AC?
Give me something to
Where
repent
were,
about.
there you, amen.
There you go.
Amen.
There we go.
Yeah, he forgot to tell me to bring my computer this morning and I forgot it also. So, you know, I need help. I need help. The brief, that was a sign from God. Joe, it's time to cut it off. The idea of Yom Adin, of judgment, one of the ideas that Rambam, the Maimonides, brings down about blowing the shofar when he tells us to awake up, you sleepers, from your sleep, and you slumberers from your slumber. He goes on to say, it's in his laws of repentance, laws of literally returning, in chapter 3. I think it's the fourth paragraph, fourth Mishnah. After we wake up, is that it? Oh, I heard the shofar and I'm now awake. Is that all there is? No, he continues with, now begin to inspect within. Examine your deeds. Deeply examine your deeds. Look at how you are living. This is a time of deep introspection and reflection so that we can truly awaken, not just from sleep, but from the darkness that we often have within us and that we live with and that we tragically inflict upon others. So it's a time of judgment, and it's asking us, not just time of judgment from God, broadening it, it's also a time of judgment for us to reflect on who we are at this time. Because if we don't, it's simply going to be a new year on the calendar, a Rosh Hashanah, but not a source of transformation, a Rosh. So how does that fit with your understanding, Imi, in Islam?
Well, I'll try to keep it brief, and to start, the term Yom ad-Din, in Arabic, it means Day of Judgment, but the word Deen also can mean religion or recompense. So these terms are all related. Um, the literal understanding of it is the last day, when the world will end and everyone will be resurrected and judged. But there's also a symbolic representation of it in this life, which is our holiest day of the year, Yom Arafah, which is the day that the religion was completed. And it's one of the days of Hajj. Um, and the pilgrims, they're all in simple garments, or at least the men, and they gather at the Mount of Arafat, and they self-reflect and pray for forgiveness for their sins, um, and just praise God, you know. And it kind of represents the day of judgment, when we'll all be called together before God and judged. So you can kind of think of it as a mini day of judgment in this life. That's the day of Arafah. But
Yes.
um, I guess that's all I'll say.
Okay. No, and that's we have ultimately the end also, who's going to be written in the book of life and who won't be. So I think we're probably all of the traditions here are in similar, I think have a similar mind on that. So it is immediate and it's also ultimate. So absolutely, thank you. Anybody else? Krishna, you have any thoughts on judgment, on awakening, on hearing the call, on transforming the self, on evolving into the greater lights of being that we all are? You want to leave us with? Krishna, yeah. Oh, Krishna left, sorry. Okay. So anybody else want to leave us with a closing thought for this wonderful time together that we've had?
I'd like to just thank you for being here, Rabbi,
Thank you.
and for everyone who has been here before and who is first time joining us. It's a real treat. This is, I'm glad we've recorded what we have recorded,
Mhm.
so it will be on YouTube. And
Yeah, I'll just
again,
put up the portion without the introductions. We'll just put the learning part. And join us again October 9th at 7 p.m. and on Zoom. Well, we're actually going to use the same link that evening, just to make it simple. And everybody is welcome to join us in person for Rosh Hashanah services, October 2nd and 3rd. And you're welcome to come to Sukkot celebrations in our first sukkah in many, many decades, October 18th and 19th. Rabbi Joe and AC will be just leading a really beautiful celebration, October 18th and 19th. All that's on our website if you need.
so guys, come behind here a second.
This is AC.
Wait, let me change my background.
We're actually in it.
Oh, there we go.
You have to get closer, AC.
Guys, get behind here if you don't mind. Just for one quick shot so that everybody can kind of see who's here right now. Oh, there's some other people. We have a few of us. I don't know. There's almost a minion here at the temple, and we're scattered in different rooms so that we can all hear our laptops and not interfere with one another. So it's kind of cool. We've got
Awesome.
an audience here on site and an audience literally around the country, so around the world, maybe. I don't know. So
Rabbi Joe, thank you so much for doing this today. That was wonderful.
Jerry, thank you for
Yeah.
everything. You keep going here. So